never made it, but I know what it takes. I'm motivated by a mix of emotion. Got my statement, and I'm reading it slow so I can understand it fully. Appreciate my standing, go out of this world and right on time. Oh, never in my life have I seen the sky light up like this. I'm far away from Earth and I wanna know if you exist. Mission control, do you read me? Send me my coordinates lately. Mission control, am I drifting? Tie me to someone who will love me, yeah. Wait, I think I'll last a bit longer. Find another.
Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone to another Ref Brandon and the Todd family YouTube video. Wherever you are, whatever you may be doing, thank you so much for making Ref Brandon and the Todd family a part of your day. We always greatly appreciate it. It's a Thursday, and I figured since week 0 in college football is just 48 hours away, today I would go ahead and do another early season prediction record for another college football team. I've done quite a few this year. I don't think I've done as many this year as I did last year. Now, of course, I haven't written this stuff down, so maybe I'm wrong and I've done just as many, but it doesn't feel like I've done as many, and if I haven't, it's not intentional. It's just there's so much other stuff going on that I just have not had the time to do any more early season prediction records videos, and this might be the last one because of the fact the season starts Saturday. But now I might do another one next week, only because this Saturday, yes, the season does start, but there's only about 10 or 12 games, so the majority of teams don't start this week and do not start until next week. So I may do one more next week. I'm not quite sure yet. Depends on how much time I have and what else is going on. But today we're going to be talking about another team from the Big 12, because it seems like this team is kind of in between as far as everybody either feels like they're going to be a top 5 team like they normally are, or they feel like they're just going to fall off the wagon this year and be lucky to be a 6-6 or 7-5 team. So I figured I would go ahead and give my prediction for them, and that is the Oklahoma Sooners. And I think the reason why a lot of people think they're going to be a top 5 team is because they're always almost a top 5 team, just about every single year, if not top 5, at least top 10. And some people feel like they're going to fall off the wagon, so to speak, because of the fact they've got a whole new coaching staff, and they're going to go from being an offensive-minded team to being a defensive-minded team, not to mention they've got a brand-new quarterback this year, and it's hard to go from either an offensive team to a defensive team or a defensive team to an offensive team in one season and not have some kind of a fall off. Now, there's a big difference in going 11-1 and going 6-6. So your fall off doesn't have to be that bad, but it's hard to transition from one side to the other with a whole new coaching staff and not have some kind of a fall off. So I'm going to go ahead and give you my prediction as always. Any thoughts on this, please feel free to let me know. Of course, the Big 12 plays 9 conference games and 3 non-conference games. Oklahoma opens up their season with all 3 of their non-conference games right in a row with UTEP, Kent State, and Nebraska. Now, of course, we know Nebraska used to be in the Big 12, but now they are in the Big 10. But Oklahoma will win all 3 of those games, and then they'll open up conference play with Kansas State, TCU, Texas, and Kansas. And then their bye week will be in week number 8, right after Kansas. And then they'll come back and play Iowa State, Baylor, West Virginia, Oklahoma State, and Texas Tech to wrap up the season. I know they used to always play Oklahoma State to wrap up the season. I'm glad they've changed that because there's a chance that both teams could play again in the Big 12 championship game, and I don't want to see them play in week 13 and then turn right around and watch the same game the very next week. At least this way, there's 2 weeks in between if that by some chance happens. But I've got them, like I said, beating a UTEP and Kent State and Nebraska. I also think they'll beat TCU and Kansas and Iowa State and Texas Tech. So I've got 7 wins on the schedule. And then Kansas State and Texas and Baylor and West Virginia and Oklahoma State. I have those 5 games. I'm giving them a half a win in each game because I think those are 50-50 games where they might win. They also might lose. So I'll say between Kansas State, Texas, Baylor, West Virginia, and Oklahoma State, they'll win 3 of those, but lose 2 of those. Now you can predict which 3 they'll win, which 2 they'll lose if you want to. So I've got them going 7-2 in the Big 12, 10-2 overall. So a 10-2 record, obviously they won't be a top 5 team, but depending on which of those games they win and which of those games they lose, they might still be in the top 10. If not, they'll be right outside the top 10. They've still got great talent, but like I said earlier, it's just hard to transition from an offensive-minded team to a defensive-minded team with a first-time head coach and a brand-new quarterback and a whole new coaching staff all in the same offseason and not have some kind of a setback. So I don't think they'll be a top 5 team, but I think they'll still be a great team. So I've got them going 7-2 in the Big 12, 10-2 overall. And while we're talking about football, let me go ahead and say this. If you follow the channel, you know this past Sunday I did my first high school football review where I ran down not all but most of the scores in the state of Georgia and a lot of the scores in the upstate of South Carolina. And I've gotten some pretty good feedback from it so far. People enjoyed it, and I am glad to hear that. I'm always glad to get your feedback, good or bad, but I really enjoy it when it's good. It lets me know I'm doing something unique and right and different. So I'll probably do one again this weekend. I don't know if it'll be Saturday or Sunday. But while we're talking about football, I'm going to go ahead and say that if you have a child or a grandchild that plays high school football, tell them to subscribe to the channel, and they can tell me, or you can tell me, what team they play for. It doesn't matter. We don't show favoritism here on the channel, so whoever they play for is perfectly fine with me. And they can tell me their name, position they play, and I would love to give them a shout out on the channel. All they have to do is subscribe, and of course I prefer you to subscribe as well. But it does not have to be your child or grandchild. It can be your nephew. It can be your cousin. It can be a family friend's kids. It doesn't have to be your child. Anybody you know that plays high school football, tell them to subscribe to the channel. Tell me who they are, and I'd be more than happy and more than glad to give them a shout out here on the channel. I love discussing any kind of football, and especially high school football, now that colleges are getting paid just as much, if not more, than NFL is. High school football is the only pure, true football there is left out there. Let's go ahead and get our dad joke of the day in here. I used to be a bus driver, but I had to quit. I was fed up of people talking behind my back. And that wraps it up for today's Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Until next time, it's Ref Brendan saying, just like in pro wrestling, life can be over by the count of 3. Tell your friends and family how much you love them. Bye.